My name is Sarah Miller, and I am a nurse. I work with adult patients at Strong Hospital, and I've been there for about 2.5 years now. And I have two daughters. One is 8 years old, and then I have a newborn who's 6 weeks old. And I'm married, and I live in Greece, in New York. In my first pregnancy with my daughter Adriana, she was born at 24 weeks gestation, and we had no idea that she was going to be born early. So I was 6 months along exactly, and I had a recent ultrasound, and everything was great. And then I went into preterm labor when I was sleeping. So it was a big surprise to us. It was pretty unbelievable. It was almost like, is this real? Because when it happened, I didn't even know I was in labor. It was about 2 a.m. and I woke up to go to the bathroom when I saw that there was blood in the toilet, and I called my doctor, and they said, you should come into the hospital. So I went to the hospital I was supposed to deliver at General, and they said, you're actually dilating. You need to go to Strong Hospital where they can care for a baby if she is going to keep coming right now. So it was at a point about 5 a.m., and I was 3 centimeters dilated, and they started giving me injections of steroids, and they said, we're going to be bringing you by ambulance over to Strong because this baby's coming. So I had my mom with me and Chris with me, my husband, and I was just so terrified. So they put me in Trendelenburg, which is where they put your head down and your feet kind of in the air in the bed to kind of work with gravity to keep her inside, because she was coming any minute. It went from like 0 to 100. There were so many things going through my head by the time I got to Strong. They started bringing in doctors, neonatal doctors, telling me about the risks of what bringing a baby this small into the world entails. And they even asked me, is this something you want to go through with? Which shocked me, as, what do you mean, do you want my baby to live or not? Of course. I mean, without hesitation, I said, I want you to do everything you can for her. She deserves a chance. And they said, she may never walk. She may never talk. She could be disabled. She has a high chance of being disabled because she's being born 4 months early. So it terrified me if she was even going to make it through the first night. So they said, if this is what you want to do, we'll go ahead and deliver by C-section. So I was so scared, and my family started coming into the hospital. So I felt a little better having everybody there with me and supporting me, but it was still so hard. So Chris and I weren't married at the time, but he was equally as terrified and shocked as I was. He was kind of notifying family when this started happening, and everyone was kind of, what do you mean Sarah's in labor? I just saw her yesterday, and she was, just barely popped out her belly, looking pregnant. So he stayed by my side the entire time, but he was equally as scared. He didn't show it as much as me, but he was very scared and worried. Well, they took me into the OR. So she was, I went to the hospital at 5 a.m. and they took me into the OR at 1 p.m. and said, she's coming. We can't prolong your labor. She has to come out now. Her feet were starting to come out already. So they said, we need to do a C-section. She wouldn't survive the birth vaginally. So I was terrified. I had just turned 19. I was so scared to have an emergency C-section. And Chris was all shook up and with what the doctors had just told us, and me going into surgery. So my mom went into the OR with me, and when she was born, they said she did a short little cry, and then they had to resuscitate immediately and put the breathing tube in. So I didn't see her at all. And my mom said she got to peek at her wheeling by, but she was kind of all covered, and they whisked her away to the NICU really fast, and I didn't see her until that evening. for the first time. It was the most stressful thing I've ever been through in my entire life. Watching her fight to breathe every single day, watching her getting poked so many times and just lay there like helplessly. It's like you would do anything to trade places with your kid so that you could take that pain for them and so they wouldn't have to endure something like that. And then it's just not fair that she had to start her life that way. But at the same time, you're so grateful that she's in such good hands and so many people that are experts in that area are there taking care of her. So at one end, I was so grateful, but I was living on edge, pretty much pins and needles the whole time she was in the NICU. Like, is this going to be my last day with her? Or am I making the right decisions for her? I was so young too, and it was just overwhelming and scary, and lots of anxiety. I felt like not many of my friends could even relate to anything that I went through, and so I kind of became more closed off and kept to myself, and no, I didn't think anybody would understand. It was just very stressful. So Adriana was in the NICU for 4.5 months. So actually 127 days to be exact. So when your baby's in the hospital that long, you start counting by the day. So, and it's something you just never forget. When she came home, she actually had to have a tracheotomy placed in order to come off the ventilator at the hospital for the breathing tube to come out. So we had to learn a lot of things of how to take care of somebody with a trach. There's a lot that goes with it because that's somebody's airway. So we had to learn like CPR, and having just to say that you have to learn CPR on your child in order to take them home is like, it's just hard to handle. So we had to learn all of her medications, and they emphasize like don't let her around anyone that's sick, and she would come home with nurses, and we would be responsible for hiring nurses to care for her. And it's like all of these things were a lot to go home with when you're supposed to be just taking home a baby and enjoying cuddles and stuff like that. So when Adriana was born so early, they did tell me that she had risks of passing away all the way to being extremely disabled. But we chose to take one day at a time and tackle it. So as she started seeing doctors, they started pointing out that she had some problems with her muscle tone, and they diagnosed her with cerebral palsy, which is common for preemies. She actually has more of a mild form of it. She's not in a wheelchair, but it does affect her entire left side and how she walks. She kind of drags her leg, and even affects some of her chewing and swallowing at times. So, and it makes her muscles tired. She can't really keep up with kids her age. It kind of, from being born so early, it ruined her airway. It's all scarred from having a breathing tube in for so long. So she still has to have a trach because of that. Not so much of breathing issues, but because of the breathing tube. And she's having to go through surgeries all the way, now she's 8 years old, and she, just to fix that. So she also wears glasses. She had to have laser eye surgery because being on oxygen for so long kind of damaged her retinas, which is called retinopathy of prematurity. So she had eye damage from that. She had kidney damage from them being so immature and small. They were like refluxing urine. She also had a clip placed on her heart valve. So because when she was born, it was just, not closed yet. That happens in the 3rd trimester. What else? Reflux, she still deals with every day. GERD, which is a common preemie problem, but she still has to take medication for that daily. Constipation. She has scars all over her body that she has, even like big keloid scar on her leg that an IV did to her. So yeah. Adriana is always going to face obstacles for surgery. It's still a part of her life at 8 years old. She had four major surgeries while in the NICU, with the eye surgery, a tracheotomy. She has a VP shunt in her brain, which drains fluid into her abdomen. She had swelling on her brain from an infection, and that nearly took her life. It didn't end when we left the NICU. As soon as 3 months after we left the NICU, she needed her shunt revised. It came out of the ventricle in her brain, and we weren't expecting that. She needed emergency surgery in the middle of the night. Some of the surgeries we know about in advance, and some of them happen like that, and it's still something we battle with up through 8 years old. So she has to go out of state to get care for her airway now. We found some specialists that really know the airway really well for kids. So that's why we travel so far to Ohio, so she can get the best care that she deserves and needs. The stress, it can bury you, honestly. It changed me, honestly. The whole experience of having her so early honestly changed my life. It made my life so stressful. So, which is okay because she's my daughter and I'd do anything, so the stress, I didn't realize at the time because I was so engaged in and focused on what was going on, and so I kind of realized it kind of caused anxiety and PTSD a couple years after I started noticing that. So, I started becoming more closed off from the people I was close with, and because I felt like they didn't understand my experience, which had become my life, because having a child with special needs and a trach is not just something that you say, it's your entire life. It's when you wake up, they're on machines and they're going to doctor's appointments and having therapy every single day. So being a caregiver is very stressful. But so it definitely changed my relationships with people I love and care about, and some of them I lost, and some of them, still there. And some of it is my fault because I couldn't, carry out my end of hanging out and going to events and stuff. But sometimes Chris and I became more distant. It was hard. We, talked to a social worker about it, and they told us, stuff like this destroys marriages and relationships because it's so hard on people to cope and to find energy and time outside of your caregiving. So, yeah, it definitely affected stuff. So when we decided to get pregnant, it actually took many years to get to this point because we were terrified that we would have another premature baby. Everyone was wondering, why do you want them so far apart, your kids? And we didn't, but we were absolutely terrified that we would have a baby that would be born so early again, and that we would have to go through, and our child would have to go through the same things. And since there wasn't a reason for Adriana coming so early, they never pinpointed a health complication or anything. It was just sometimes babies come early and there's no reason. So knowing that just kept us scared, and finally we decided we really wanted to grow our family. We were in a new house and thought we could handle it. And then the doctors decided that they would watch me very, very closely because having a preemie puts you at higher risk for having another one. So knowing that, they wanted to watch me like every other week at the doctor's, extra ultrasounds. So I felt safe knowing that they were going to watch me really close. So, but they ended up picking up about 20 weeks into my second pregnancy, they ended up picking up that my cervix was thinning, meaning that I would eventually go into labor pretty soon. So they said you'd probably be in labor right around 24 weeks, like your first, if we don't do this procedure called a stitch, where they go in and they sew your cervix closed. So I had that done, and I was so scared that it wasn't going to work, but thankfully it did work. And I was able to carry my second baby to 37 weeks, which is almost full term. So Adriana is such a joy. She embraces every single day. Having a disability, she is so happy and doesn't even honestly think about herself as being disabled. She is so interested in caring about other people, and she honestly is a very happy kid, and you wouldn't even know that she would went through so many things because she has such a kind heart, and she just faces each day head on, and she's, doesn't hold being disabled as it holds her back at all. She's a trooper.